I'd never mentioned that there were men as dark as this. Wow, look at that nose. He's just like a pig. He's a monster! Hut!
I contacted you because you published a post where you explained the issues you faced with your parents when you decided to date a Hispanic man. And I'm not showing your face because you want to remain anonymous, and I'm respecting that. But I want to thank you for joining me. And my first question is, why did you decide to publish that particular story on Reddit?
Asianparentstories is actually how I got into the Reddit platform in the beginning. I think I was just looking around, and my grandmother had just said something to me about my relationship because she criticized my relationship to my boyfriend a lot, and I was just very frustrated. I looked online, and I just kind of ended up venting all of my frustration onto like my first Reddit post.
Okay. Did your parents give you any inkling that they had like negative views of Hispanic people beforehand, or was this something?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I knew beforehand that they were like they're not even simply racist more than they are very xenophobic. So within the Korean community, I feel like especially we're very critical of other Asian people as well. So there's like a lot of distrust towards especially Japanese people, but also Chinese people, Southern Asians, people like that.
Okay. Do you think that, like, let's say your now, I guess, fiance, because you updated the story, had an issue with like financial potential or like education? Do you think your parents would have protested more about the relationship?
What exactly do you mean?
Like, for example, like if they thought that he was more like not likely to have a college degree, or wasn't pursuing a college degree, or like wasn't at a well-paying job, do you think that they would have protested more, or do you think that that would have mattered at all?
They would have definitely protested more if he was, like, say, something unemployed. He went to a trade school, and they already thought that wasn't a great situation because I was going to a 4-year university at the time. They basically made a lot of emphasis on how I should be dating someone who's in a higher social class than I am, so that he should be making more money than me, he should have, like, a better education than me, things like that.
Okay. Was this something, I guess, that you heard in previous relationships, or is this like new when you were dating him?
I actually didn't divulge my previous relationships to my parents that often, just because I kind of knew that they would object to me dating at all.
Okay.
So I definitely heard it a lot more when I started publicly dating my boyfriend. Beforehand, not so much, just because it wasn't the education wasn't really an issue more than it was the fact that I was dating someone Hispanic or older than me or something like that.
Okay. Can you give me like any more examples of like any issues you may have faced while dating your, I guess now fiance, either like from your family or from society, if there were any other examples?
So we're actually married now. We got married in May.
Oh, okay. Congratulations. I didn't know that.
No worries. I didn't update afterwards because I've been kind of having minimal contact with my family. But the weirdest thing I think that my family has ever done to me, because normally it's just kind of criticizing me directly, and that resulted in me not really wanting to talk about him at all near my family. For a while, I kept my relationship life and my family life completely separate. Like, I wouldn't mention him at all. But there was once where he came over because he was going to be a co-signer for a loan that I was applying for. And he came in, and I guess he didn't say hi to my parents because he knew beforehand that they speak strictly only Korean, and he doesn't speak any Korean. And my dad came in afterwards and asked me if my boyfriend had autism because he didn't say anything to him. And I think that was probably like the strangest thing that ever happened to me, because once he said, I think your boyfriend has autism, he made that into like a thing as to why I shouldn't date him, because he said that he was sick and that sick people are dangerous.
Wow. Okay. What did your boyfriend say to that, if anything?
He thought it was ridiculous. But he didn't have a good opinion of my dad beforehand. So I guess he wasn't very surprised.
I guess that leads into another follow-up question. Has this tension, or did this tension, I should say, because you're married now, affect your boyfriend in any way? At least in terms of the relationship, do you think?
I think it's been kind of like, our relationship definitely hasn't gone south between us, more than it is like there are some tensions between my boyfriend, or sorry, my husband now, and my family. I don't keep in contact with my family as much now, and I think that's kind of because I've kind of chosen to go on this path more than the path that my parents have chosen for me. They've come over maybe like once since we moved out, and I think they've been keeping the criticisms down to a minimum since we're officially married already.
Yeah. But it's still there, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's definitely still there.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I think if anything, it's not really the fact that my parents are critical of him more than it is the fact that my parents have borrowed money from me before, and that kind of puts like a financial strain on our relationship a little bit, because my family hasn't paid back anything. I think that gave him like a very negative view of my dad in particular.
Yeah. I'll move on to a slightly different form of, like, a slightly different topic, but in the same category, I guess. You'll see what I mean. Do you, have you seen any other examples of, like, either Asian men or women who have had trouble dating outside of their race, either with white people or non-white people?
The thing is, I do have a lot of Asian friends who have very overly critical parents, but a lot of those friends either aren't dating anyone, or they're dating person within like within their ethnicity. I have one person who's actually she's Korean and she's dating someone from Spain, and her family, I assume, has been taking it very well because they've been going out to dinner. He's been staying over at her house, which is a big deal in Korean culture because they consider it to be very suspicious or like gossip worthy if a member of the opposite sex sleeps over at your house. So I've only seen positives. Most of the negatives that I've seen with dating has been mostly online, where people are also sharing their stories.
Okay. Going a little bit, I guess, pushing a little bit more, there was a article I read on OC Weekly where there was an Asian woman who basically, I think the article was called "Can Asian Women Trust Mexican Men?" And this woman was dating a Mexican man and was worried because this is her first Mexican boyfriend, and she heard from her white girlfriends like that Mexican men cheat and are overly possessive. And like, I know that Mexican isn't necessarily the same as Hispanic, but in some Asian circles, or like some circles that aren't Hispanic or Mexican, they may think that they're the same. So I read that, and I'm thinking to myself that maybe that Asian women may have negative views of Hispanics or Mexicans, at least dating-wise. Do you see that in any form, or do you think that there's a positive view or a neutral view?
So, I'm living in California right now, and when I went to USC for college. Over there, it was pretty open-minded just because you see Hispanic people everywhere. It's just like a part of being in LA, you know? So for my friend group with Asian women, it didn't seem really like a problem at all. Um, but back in my hometown, which is in Orange County, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more of the white population and the Asian population. And my grandmother had like this really. She was very racist against Black people and Hispanic people. Basically with all like the typical negative stereotypes that you would associate with them, you know, like cheating, you know, like thievery, like being more on the side of like the illegal side.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say that those stereotypes definitely exist within the Asian community, but they tend to get a little bit more. They tend to get broken down when it comes to people who have actually lived in America. So I would say that kind of viewpoint is actually more common when it comes to like say women who immigrated directly from the country rather than that they were born in America and have lived through American culture.
Okay. Do you think that these stereotypes in any way are perpetuated by the model minority stereotype?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely think so, and I think it's a what is it? I think it's a combination of wanting to keep up appearances, and also this idea of they only want to associate with people within their own groups, if that makes sense. So they don't typically go outside of their comfort zone and say like befriend Hispanic people, befriend people who aren't Asian. And that's typically when I see those negative stereotypes like arise, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But again, you would say that like a lack of contact or like communication between the two groups reinforces that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess this is my final line of questioning. What advice do you have for Asian women who have parents that don't want them to date Hispanic men or just men of color?
I think for me, the fact that I even was able to keep in contact with my parents was like a big victory. I've heard a lot of stories of when they want to date people who are of color and they just get kicked out of their house, or they get so much pressure put on them that they end up just breaking up with them because they have to. I would say, honestly, if you're a minor, just to keep it secret, because to a certain extent, there's only so much that you can do to protect yourself and to protect what you want to be doing when you have parents who are very overprotective. Once you become an adult and you have your own abilities to break off and financially support yourself, then that's when you can start pushing. If you really want to keep contact with your family, you have to stand your ground. And honestly, if your parents decide that they want nothing to do with you, then that's their loss, you know? That's the production of, like, honestly, years of xenophobia that I've seen in Asia, specifically Korea in particular. So I would say, honestly, just go for love, you know? And if your family doesn't accept it, then there's really nothing that you can do about it. It's their choice.
And my final question is, what do you have to say to Asian parents included, who have a negative view of Hispanics?
I would really want them to go out and actually talk to Hispanic people. I feel like that's the biggest problem is I see all these Korean women and they're just talking with other Korean women and they're gossiping about, like the other people. Like just go out and talk to like a couple Hispanic people. You meet some bad people and you meet some good people. In the end, the society, I found that the culture of Hispanic people, especially when it comes to people from like Honduras and like El Salvador compared to like people from Mexico, it's like so much more nuanced than we're led to believe. I feel like as soon as like people start talking to them and like realizing that they're like these people with personalities and not just like a huge like band of like people who are trying to rob you, that all the stereotypes just kind of break down, I just want people, like Asian people, to remain open-minded, not to be, like, freaked out. Just because people don't look like you doesn't mean that they're out to attack you. Just try to, be open-minded, keep your heart open, and try to, especially if you have a child who's trying to pursue a relationship, for the sake of your kid at least, to try to understand them a little bit before you make any judgments or come down on them too hard.
Well, those are all my questions. If you don't have anything else to add, I wanted to thank you again and congratulate you on your marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been really nice.
Yeah. It's nice to hear, again, I guess for somebody who is willing to defend this, because as you may see by some of the videos that I've done, that a lot of the people that at least that I talk to don't necessarily defend it. So, again, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. This relationship has honestly been one of like the best things that's ever happened to me. And like the idea that like these kinds of stereotypes would have, if I was, I don't know, less educated or something, I guess, that these kinds of stereotypes would have kept me from marrying my husband and like having this life. It like sucks. And I don't want anyone else to have to struggle through that kind of thing, honestly.